6 months had passed since the assassination attempt. The palace had returned to normal. The diplomats had gone home. The investigation had revealed that the attackers were hired by a rival faction within the Valari government, nobles who opposed peace with humanity. They had all been arrested. The threat was over, but Yuna's life had changed forever. She stood on the balcony of the royal chambers, looking out at the city below. The 3 moons hung in the sky, casting silver light over everything. It was beautiful, peaceful, perfect. Strong arms wrapped around her from behind. She leaned back into Taiho's chest, feeling his warmth, hearing his heartbeat. "What are you thinking about?" he asked softly. "Everything," she replied. "The war, the peace, use." Taiho rested his chin on top of her head. They had grown so comfortable with each other. Touch came naturally now. Silence was never awkward. They could communicate without words. "Any regrets?" he asked. Yuan turned in his arms to face him. She looked up at his dark eyes, so different from her own violet ones. Once, those differences had seemed like a wall between them. Now, they felt like complementary colors in a painting. "None," she said firmly. "Not a single one." They had moved into shared chambers 2 months ago. It had been Yuna's decision. She had gone to his room one evening and simply said, "I am tired of sleeping alone." Taiho had smiled that warm smile of his and said, "Then do not." Their relationship had deepened in ways Yuna had never imagined possible. They talked about everything. Their hopes, their fears, their dreams for the future. Taiho told her about his childhood on Earth, about his parents who had died in an accident when he was young, about his sister who had raised him. Yuna told him about growing up in the palace, about the pressure of being a princess, about always feeling like she was not enough. They understood each other in ways no one else ever had. "I received a message from Earth today," Taiho said. "My sister wants to meet you." Yuna felt a flutter of nervousness. "She does?" "She has been following the news about us. She says I sound happier than she has ever heard. She wants to thank you for that. But I am Valari. We were enemies." Taiho laughed softly. "My sister does not care about politics. She cares about family. And you are family now, Yuna, whether you are ready for that or not." Family. The word hit Yuna harder than she expected. She had always had family, of course. Her father, her siblings, her cousins. But they were political family. Everything was about duty, about obligation, about the empire. Taiho's family sounded different. They sounded warm. "I would like to meet her," Yuna said. "Someday. Maybe she could come here?" "She would love that. She has never been off Earth. She says space travel makes her nervous." Taiho grinned. "My sister can face down corporate executives and government officials without breaking a sweat. But put her on a shuttle, and she turns into a frightened child." Yuna smiled. "She sounds wonderful." "She is. You will like her, and she will love you." They stood in comfortable silence for a while, watching the moons move slowly across the sky. "Taiho," Yuna said eventually, "I have been thinking about what you told me. About humans? About how you protect what you love. Yes? I understand it now. I understand why the galaxy fears your species. But I also understand something else." She stepped back so she could look at him properly. "I understand that fear is the wrong response. The galaxy looks at humans and sees a threat. They see warriors who cannot be stopped, soldiers who feel no fear, killers who show no mercy. But that is not what you are." Taiho listened quietly, his eyes soft. "You are guardians," Yuna continued. "Everything about humans makes sense when I think of you that way. Your ability to separate emotions from action. Your endurance. Your willingness to sacrifice. These are not the traits of conquerors. These are the traits of protectors." We have done terrible things, Taiho said quietly. Humans have conquered, enslaved, destroyed. Our history is full of darkness. So is ours. So is every species. But what matters is what you choose to be now. Yuna took his hands in hers. You chose to be a guardian. You chose peace over war, kindness over cruelty, love over hate. That is who you are, Taiho. That is who humanity can be. Taiho's eyes glistened with moisture. You see the best in us. I see the truth. I lived with you for months, looking for the monster everyone warned me about. I tested you, challenged you, pushed you in every way I could imagine. And what did I find? A man who tends gardens. A man who comforts crying children. A man who would do anything to protect the people he loves. She reached up and touched his face gently. The galaxy should not fear humans. They should be grateful that humans choose to be kind. Taiho pulled her close and held her tightly. Yuna felt his heart beating against her chest, steady and strong. I love you, he whispered. It was the first time either of them had said those words. Yuna felt tears rolling down her cheeks. But they were not sad tears. They were tears of joy, of relief, of finally understanding. I love you too, she said. I think I have loved you for a long time. I was just too afraid to admit it. They stood there, holding each other, as the moons continued their slow dance across the sky. The next morning, Yuna addressed the Imperial Council. She stood before her father and all the nobles of the realm, dressed in her formal robes, looking every bit the princess she was born to be. I have something to say, she announced. Something important. The council fell silent. Even her father looked curious. When I was told I would marry a human, I was terrified. I thought I was being sacrificed to a monster. I thought my life was over. She paused, letting the words sink in. I was wrong. She looked around the room, meeting the eyes of nobles who had once mocked her marriage. Humans are not monsters. They are not savages. They are not the mindless killers our propaganda made them out to be. They are people. Complex, flawed, beautiful people who love as deeply as we do. Some of the nobles shifted uncomfortably. Others looked skeptical. I have lived with a human for 6 months. I have seen him at his best and at his worst. I have seen his kindness and his violence. And I can tell you with absolute certainty that we were wrong to fear them. Then what should we feel? Her father asked. Yuna smiled. Respect. Humans are powerful, yes. They can be dangerous, yes. But they choose, every day, to use that power for protection rather than conquest. They choose love over hate. They choose peace over war. She stood taller, prouder. My husband is a human. He's also the best person I have ever known. And I am honored to spend my life with him. The council was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, her father began to clap. Other nobles joined in, one by one, until the whole chamber echoed with applause. That evening, Yuna found Taiho waiting for her in their chambers. He had heard about her speech. Word traveled fast in the palace. That was brave, he said. Standing up for humanity like that. Yuna shrugged. It was the truth. Someone needed to say it. Still, it could have gone badly. The council might have turned on you. Then you would have protected me. Yuna smiled at him. That is what humans do, right? Protect what they love? Taiho laughed and pulled her into his arms. You are learning. I have a good teacher. They walked together to the balcony, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of purple and gold. What happens now? Taiho asked. Now we build something new. A true alliance between humans and Valari. Not based on fear or politics, but on understanding and respect. That sounds like a lot of work. It will be. But we have time. And we have each other. Taiho kissed the top of her head. Yes, we do. Yuna leaned into him, feeling safe and loved and understood. She had started this journey expecting to sacrifice herself to a monster. Instead, she had found a partner, a guardian, a love she never knew was possible. The galaxy might never fully understand humans. They might always see them as a threat, as something to be feared. But Yuna knew the truth now. Humans were not dangerous because they were violent. They were dangerous because they loved. Without limits, and she had married one. The best one. As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Yuna smiled. For the first time in her life, she was truly happy. And that happiness was worth more than any empire in the galaxy. 3 days had passed since the attack. The palace was still in chaos. Guards had been tripled. Security systems had been upgraded. The Emperor had ordered a full investigation to find out who had sent the assassins. But Yuna could not focus on any of that. Her mind kept returning to the same question. The question that had haunted her since that terrible night. What were humans, really? She found Taiho in the garden, sitting beside the old gardener. They were planting new flowers together, their hands covered in dirt, their faces peaceful. It was hard to believe that these same hands had killed 12 people just days ago. Taiho, Yuna said, we need to talk. Taiho looked up at her. He seemed to understand immediately. He stood, brushed the dirt from his clothes, and nodded politely to the old gardener. Of course, he said. Where would you like to go? Somewhere private. Somewhere we will not be disturbed. They walked to a small room in the east wing of the palace. It was Taiho's private study, filled with books from Earth and devices for communication. Yuna had never been here before. They sat across from each other. Yuna studied his face, looking for any sign of the killer she had witnessed. But she saw only the gentle man she had grown to care for. Ask me anything, Taiho said. I will tell you the truth. Yuna took a deep breath. Why does the galaxy fear humans so much? I thought I knew. I thought it was because you were savage, because you were brutal. But after living with you, I know that is not true. You are kind. You are gentle. So why? Does every empire in the galaxy treat humanity like a threat? Taiho was quiet for a moment. He seemed to be gathering his thoughts. Let me tell you a story, he said finally. A story about Earth, about my people, about why we are the way we are. Yuna nodded and listened. Humans evolved on a planet that was trying to kill us. Our world had earthquakes, volcanoes, floods, diseases, predators, and extreme temperatures. We had no natural armor, no claws, no fangs. We were soft and weak compared to other animals. He leaned forward, his eyes intense. But we survived. We survived because we learned to adapt. We learned to use tools. We learned to work together. And most importantly, we learned to separate our emotions from our actions when necessary. What do you mean? Yuna asked. Other species feel emotions that control their behavior. When they are angry, they act angry. When they are afraid, they act afraid. Their feelings and their actions are connected directly. But humans learn to break that connection. Taiho stood and walked to the window, looking out at the garden. A human can feel absolute terror and still think clearly. A human can feel burning rage and still make rational decisions. We do not lose ourselves in our emotions. We use our emotions as fuel while our minds stay in control. Yuna thought about the attack. She remembered how calm Taiho had been while killing those assassins. His body had moved with deadly precision, but his face had shown nothing. No anger, no fear, no excitement. That is why you were so calm during the fight, she said slowly. You were not emotionless. You were controlling your emotions. Exactly. Taiho turned back to face her. Every human soldier learns this. We are taught to put our feelings in a box and lock them away during combat. We deal with them later, in private, when the danger is past. But that sounds painful. How can you just ignore what you feel? Taiho smiled sadly. We do not ignore it. We delay it. After battles, human soldiers often suffer greatly. We have nightmares. We struggle with memories. Some of us never fully recover. But in the moment when lives are at stake, we push through. We do what must be done. Yuna felt a chill run down her spine. So humans feel everything other species feel. You just do not let it stop you. Yes, and that is exactly why the galaxy fears us. Taiho sat back down across from her. His voice became heavier, more serious. When the Valari feel overwhelming fear, your soldiers retreat. When the Kronax feel unbearable pain, they surrender. When most species reach their breaking point, they stop fighting. But humans do not have that limit. We keep going. We keep fighting. Even when we are terrified, even when we are in agony, even when we have lost everything. Because you lock it away, Yuna whispered. Because we lock it away, Taiho confirmed. And there is something else, something that makes humans even more dangerous. Yuna was not sure she wanted to hear this, but she needed to know. What is it? Taiho looked directly into her eyes. Humans are pack animals. We form bonds with each other that are almost impossible to break. Family, friends, community. These connections are sacred to us. And when someone threatens our pack, something inside us changes. Changes how? We stop thinking about ourselves. We stop caring about our own survival. All that matters is protecting the people we love. A human who has nothing to lose is dangerous, but a human protecting their family is unstoppable. Taiho's voice dropped to barely a whisper. During the war with the Valari, your fleet destroyed a human colony. 50,000 civilians died, including children. The human response was not rage. It was something colder, something more terrible. We destroyed every Valari military installation within 3 star systems. We did not stop until the threat was completely eliminated. Yuna remembered hearing about this. Her people called it the 3 weeks of darkness. The Valari fleet had lost 200 warships. 1 million soldiers had died. And the humans had kept coming, wave after wave, until the Valari begged for peace. That was not revenge, Taiho continued. That was protection. We were sending a message to the entire galaxy. If you hurt our people, there is no place you can hide. We will find you. We will stop you, no matter the cost. Yuna's hands were shaking. She understood now. She finally understood why no empire dared to fight humans. It was not because humans were cruel. It was because humans loved too much. They loved their families, their friends, their homes so deeply that they would burn the entire galaxy to keep them safe. But you are here, Yuna said quietly. You married me. You left your family, your home, everything you love. Why? Taiho reached across the table and gently took her hands in his. Because peace is also protection. By marrying you, I am protecting my people and your people. No more wars, no more deaths. No more children crying for parents who will never come home. Tears rolled down Yuna's face. She did not try to stop them. You gave up everything for peace. I gave up my old life, Taiho said softly. But I am building a new one. Here, with you. Yuna looked at their joined hands. His skin was so different from hers. Warm and soft, where hers was cool and smooth. But somehow, they fit together perfectly. Are all humans like you? She asked. Taiho shook his head. No, some humans are selfish. Some are cruel. We have our share of darkness, just like any species. But most of us are just people trying to protect and love the ones we care about. And you care about me? Yuna's voice was barely audible. Taiho squeezed her hands gently. I did not expect to. When I agreed to this marriage, I thought it would be a duty. a sacrifice for peace. But then I met you. I saw your strength, your intelligence, your kindness. And somewhere along the way, duty became something more. Yuna felt her heart beating faster. She had spent months looking for the monster inside this human. Instead, she had found something far more dangerous. She had found love. Real, genuine, terrifying love. I am still afraid, she admitted. Of me? Of what loving you means. If humans protect what they love with such intensity, what happens if I become one of those things? What would you do for me? Taiho's eyes met hers, and in that moment, she saw both parts of him. The gentleman who grew flowers and helped in kitchens, and the soldier who could kill without hesitation. Anything, he said simply. I would do anything. Yuna believed him. That was what scared her most. But as she sat there, holding hands with this human, she realized something important. She was no longer afraid of what he might do. She was afraid of what she might do for him, because somewhere along the way, without realizing it, she had started to love him too. And she was beginning to understand that love was the most dangerous force in the universe. The diplomatic banquet was the largest event of the year. Representatives from 12 different species had come to the Valari Palace to celebrate the new peace treaty. The great hall was filled with music, food, and carefully polite conversation. Yuna stood beside Taiho, greeting guests as they arrived. She wore a beautiful silver gown that matched her hair. Taiho wore a formal hewn suit, simple but elegant. They looked like a perfect couple, a symbol of unity between two former enemies. You look lovely tonight, Taiho said softly, leaning close to her ear. Yuna felt her face grow warm. Over the past few weeks, something had changed between them. They talked every evening. They ate meals together. Sometimes they just sat in comfortable silence, enjoying each other's company. She was not sure what to call this feeling. It was too soon for love, but it was definitely more than tolerance. Thank you, she replied. You look acceptable for a human. Taiho laughed. He knew she was joking. They had developed their own way of communicating, full of small jokes and gentle teasing. The banquet proceeded smoothly. Diplomats made speeches about peace and cooperation. Musicians played songs from different worlds. Servants carried trays of exotic food from across the galaxy. Yuna was starting to relax when she noticed something strange. A group of servers had entered from the west entrance. They were wearing the palace uniform, but something about them felt wrong. They moved too smoothly, too coordinated. Their eyes scanned the room constantly, never settling on any single point. Yuna had been trained to notice these things. Her mother had taught her that danger often came disguised as ordinary. She looked at Taiho. He was already watching the servers. His body had not changed position, but something in his eyes had shifted. The warmth was gone, replaced by something cold. Something calculating? Taiho? She whispered. I see them, he said quietly. His voice was different now. Flat, emotionless. 12 hostiles, armed with concealed blades. They are moving toward the Emperor. Yuna's heart began to race. How do you know they have weapons? How can you tell? The way they walk, the bulges under their clothes, the patterns of their movement. I have seen this before. Before Yuna could respond, everything happened at once. The 12 servers pulled their blades. They were not ordinary knives, but plasma cutters, weapons designed to slice through armor like paper. The guests screamed and scattered. Guards rushed forward but were too slow, too far away. The assassins moved toward Emperor, toward Yuna's father. Their leader raised his blade high dot, and then Taiho moved. Yuna had seen warriors fight before. She had watched the greatest champions of the Valari Empire in combat. They were fast. They were skilled. They were deadly. But she had never seen anything like this. Taiho crossed the distance in less than a second. His hand grabbed the leader's wrist and twisted. The sound of breaking bone echoed through the hall. Before the assassin could scream, Taiho had already taken his blade and buried it in his chest. The other assassins turned to face this new threat. They were trained killers, professionals who had never failed a mission. They attacked together, coordinated and precise. It did not matter. Taiho moved through them like water through rocks. He did not dodge their attacks. He redirected them, turning their own momentum against them. Every movement was efficient. Every strike was lethal. There was no wasted energy, no unnecessary motion. One assassin swung at his neck. Taiho ducked under the blade, grabbed the attacker's arm, and used it to block another assassin's strike. Then he snapped both their necks with a single twist. Another assassin tried to run. Taiho threw a blade with perfect accuracy, hitting him in the spine from 30 feet away. Two more attacked from opposite sides. Taiho dropped to the floor, swept one's legs out, caught him before he fell, and used his body as a shield against the other's blade. Then he killed them both with strikes to their throats. The whole thing took less than 20 seconds. 12 trained assassins lay dead on the floor. Taiho stood in the center of them, breathing normally. There was blood on his hands, on his suit, on his face. But his expression had not changed. He was calm, relaxed, as if he had done nothing more difficult than taking a walk. The great hall was completely silent. Every guest, every servant, every guard stared at the human with absolute terror. Taiho looked down at his hands. Then he looked up at Yuna. The coldness in his eyes slowly faded. The warmth returned. And suddenly, he was just Taiho again. The man who helped in the kitchen. The man who played with children. The man who loved flowers. "Are you hurt?" he asked softly. Yuna could not speak. She could not move. She just stared at him, at the bodies around him, at the blood dripping from his fingers. Taiho walked toward her slowly, carefully. He seemed to understand that he had frightened her. When he reached her, he kept a respectful distance. "Yuna," he said gently, "I am sorry you had to see that. But they were going to kill your father. They were going to kill you." "How?" Yuna finally managed to whisper. "How did you do that?" Taiho was quiet for a moment. "I am a soldier. This is what I was trained to do." "No." Yuna shook her head. "No soldier moves like that. No soldier kills like that." "What are you?" Taiho looked sad. It was the same sadness she had seen when he talked about missing Earth, when he comforted the crying child, when he spoke about the war. "I am human," he said simply. "This is what humans are." Guards finally arrived to secure the area. Medical teams rushed in to help the wounded. Diplomats were escorted to safety. The Emperor was taken to a protected room. But Yuna could not stop staring at Taiho. She had spent months looking for the monster inside him. She had tested him, pushed him, challenged him. And she had found only kindness, only gentleness, only warmth. Now she understood. The monster and the kind man were the same person. They existed together, inside the same body, behind the same eyes. Taiho could hold a crying child with the same hands that had just killed 12 people. He could smile warmly at her after ending lives without hesitation. This was not madness. This was not evil. This was something far more terrifying. This was control. Humans did not lose themselves in violence. They did not become savage or wild. They stayed perfectly calm, perfectly rational, perfectly aware. They killed with the same emotional distance that other species used to cook dinner or clean their homes. That night, Yuna sat alone in her room. She could not sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Taiho moving through those assassins. She saw the blood. She heard the sound of breaking bones. There was a knock at her door. "Yuna?" Taiho's voice was soft. "May I come in?" Part of her wanted to say no. Part of her wanted to lock the door and never see him again. But a larger part, a part she did not fully understand, wanted him near. Yes, she said quietly. Taeho entered slowly. He had changed his clothes and washed the blood from his skin. He looked normal again, like the gentle man she had grown to care for. I know you are afraid of me now, he said. I understand. I will stay away if that is what you want. Yuna looked at him for a long moment. Then she patted the space beside her on the bed. Taeho sat down carefully, keeping distance between them. I am not afraid of you, Yuna said finally. I am afraid of what you showed me. I am afraid of what humans truly are. Taeho nodded slowly. I know. I'm sorry. Do not apologize. You saved my father's life. You saved my life. She paused. But I need to understand. How can you be so kind and so deadly at the same time? How can you hold children and kill enemies with the same heart? Taeho was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. Because I choose to be kind, he said. Every day, I wake up and choose gentleness. I choose to help instead of hurt. I choose to love instead of hate. The violence is always there, inside me, but I keep it locked away until it is truly needed. He looked at her with eyes full of sorrow. This is what makes humans dangerous. Yuna, we are not naturally violent. We are naturally kind. But when someone threatens the people we love, we unlock that door. And then nothing in the universe can stop us. Yuna felt tears forming in her eyes. She finally understood something important. The galaxy was not afraid of human rage. They were afraid of human love, because humans would do anything, absolutely anything, to protect what they loved. And that was the most terrifying thing of all. 2 months passed since the wedding. Yuna had watched Taeho every single day. She had followed him through the palace, through the city, through the gardens. She had listened to his conversations. She had studied his habits, and she was more confused than ever. Taeho woke up every morning at the same time. He exercised in his room for exactly 1 hour. Then he showered, dressed in simple clothes, and went to the palace kitchen to help prepare breakfast. The kitchen staff had been terrified of him at first. They had heard stories of humans ripping enemies apart with their bare hands. They had seen videos of human soldiers laughing while cities burned around them, but Taeho just asked if he could help. He learned to cook Valari dishes. He joked with the cooks. He tasted their food and gave honest opinions. Within a few weeks, the kitchen staff loved him. He is strange, said Bora, the head cook. She was an old Valari woman with wrinkled silver skin and wise eyes. I have lived for 200 years. I have seen many species, but I have never seen anyone like him. Yuna stood beside her, watching Taeho through the kitchen window. He was teaching a young cook how to make something called pancakes. What do you mean? Yuna asked. He is completely present, Bora explained. When he talks to you, he truly listens. When he helps you, he truly cares. There is no pretending, no hiding. He's exactly what he appears to be. That is impossible, Yuna said. No one is exactly what they appear to be. Everyone has secrets. Bora shrugged. Maybe, but if that human has secrets, they're not dark ones. Yuna was not convinced. She decided to test him. She arranged for difficult situations to see how he would react. First, she had a servant spill hot soup on his clothes during dinner. Yuna expected anger. She expected violence. The Kronax ambassador had once killed a servant for a smaller mistake, but Taeho just laughed. He helped the crying servant clean up the mess. He told her it was just an accident, that nobody was hurt, that clothes could be washed. The servant left the room in tears, not from fear, but from gratitude. Next, Yuna arranged for a group of young Valari nobles to insult him at a party. They called him a savage. They said humans were just clever animals pretending to be civilized. They mocked his short lifespan, his soft skin, his lack of natural weapons. Taiho listened to every insult without expression. When they finished, he smiled and bowed politely. "You are right about many things," he said calmly. "Humans are young. We have only been in space for 300 years. We have much to learn from ancient species like yours. I hope you will teach me." The nobles did not know what to say. They had expected a fight. They had expected to see the famous human rage that had terrified the galaxy. Instead, they got humility and kindness. Yuna watched from across the room. She felt something strange in her chest. Was it respect? No, that was impossible. She could not respect the human, but she was starting to understand why he was chosen for this mission. Weeks continued to pass. Yuna found herself spending more time with Taiho, not because she had to, but because she wanted to. He told her about Earth. He described blue oceans and green forests. He talked about mountains so tall they touched the clouds, and deserts so vast they seemed endless. He spoke of his home with love, but also with sadness. "I miss it," he admitted one evening. They were sitting in the garden, watching the 3 moons rise. The stardrops were blooming, just as the old gardener had promised. "Why did you agree to this marriage?" Yuna asked. "You could have refused. You could have stayed on Earth." Taiho was quiet for a moment. "My people needed peace. Your people needed peace. Someone had to make a sacrifice. I volunteered, but why you? You could have lived a normal life. Found a human wife. Had human children." Taiho smiled sadly. "I have seen enough war, princess. I have lost friends. I have lost family. If my marriage can prevent other families from losing their loved ones, then it is worth any sacrifice." Yuna felt that strange feeling in her chest again. This time, she knew what it was. Admiration. She was starting to admire this human. This was dangerous. A few days later, something unexpected happened. A group of children visited the palace for an educational tour. They were young Valari, no older than 10 years. Most of them had lost parents in the war against humanity. Yuna expected Taiho to hide from them. These children had every reason to hate humans. Their parents had died fighting Taiho's people, but Taiho did not hide. He walked right up to the children and knelt down to their level. "Hello," he said gently. "My name is Taiho. I know humans and Valari were enemies before, but I want you to know something. I am sorry for what happened. I am sorry for everyone you lost." The children stared at him with wide eyes. One little boy stepped forward. His small hands were shaking. "My father died fighting humans," the boy said. His voice was angry. "He was a pilot. Your ship shot him down." Taiho nodded slowly. "I am truly sorry. Your father was brave. He fought to protect you and your family. That makes him a hero. Then why did you kill him?" The boy demanded. The room went silent. Even Yuna held her breath. This was the moment. This was when the monster would finally appear. But Taiho just looked at the boy with sad eyes. "Because I was also trying to protect my family," he said quietly. "War is terrible. Good people on both sides die. I wish I could bring your father back. I wish I could bring back everyone we lost. But I cannot. All I can do is make sure this peace lasts, so that you never have to lose anyone again." The little boy started to cry, and then something amazing happened. Taiho opened his arms, and the boy ran into them. The human held the Valari child gently, letting him cry against his chest. "It is okay," Taiho whispered. "It is okay to be sad. It is okay to be angry. I understand. Yuna watched this scene with tears in her own eyes. She had never seen anything like it. Here was a warrior who had killed thousands, comforting the child of his enemy with genuine love. That night, Yuna went to Taiho's room for the first time. She knocked on his door and waited. He opened it, looking surprised. "Princess? Is something wrong?" She shook her head. "I just wanted to say, what you did today with the children. It was kind. It was more than kind. It was beautiful." Taiho smiled softly. "They deserve kindness. They did not choose this war. Neither did we." Yuna looked at him for a long moment. Then she did something that surprised even herself. She stepped forward and hugged him. Taiho froze for a second. Then his arms slowly wrapped around her, holding her gently. "Thank you," she whispered, "for being nothing like what I expected." "Thank you for giving me a chance," he replied as Yuna walked back to her room that night. Her mind was full of questions. She had spent 2 months looking for the monster inside this human. She had tested him, challenged him, pushed him in every way she could imagine, and she had found nothing but kindness. But somewhere deep in her heart, a small voice whispered a warning. Humans were the most dangerous species in the galaxy for a reason. They had conquered empires that had existed for millennia. They had destroyed fleets that had never known defeat. That power had to come from somewhere. And Yuna was starting to realize that she might not want to see it when it finally appeared. The war had lasted 7 years. 7 long years of burning planets, dying soldiers, and empty promises of victory. The Valari Empire had lost 3 million warriors. Their fleet was broken. Their pride was shattered. And now, Princess Yuna stood in front of her father's throne, listening to words she never thought she would hear. "You will marry a human," the Emperor said. His voice was tired. His silver skin had lost its glow. "This is the only way to end this war." Yuna felt her heart stop. She was the youngest daughter of the most powerful empire in the galaxy. She had been raised to rule, to command armies, to marry a prince from a worthy species. Not a human. Never a human. "Father," she said slowly, "humans are savages. They eat dead animals. They fight each other for sport. They destroyed the Kronax fleet in 40 days. 40 days, father. The Kronax had ruled their sector for 10,000 years." The Emperor closed his eyes. "I know what they are, daughter. That is exactly why we must have peace with them." Yuna wanted to argue. She wanted to scream and refuse. But she looked at her father's face and saw something she had never seen before. Fear. The mighty Emperor of the Valari was afraid of these humans. "Who is he?" she asked quietly. "Who will I marry?" "His name is Taiho. He's a soldier, a captain in their military. The humans offered him as a sign of good faith. He will come to live here, in our palace. You will be his wife. A soldier. Not even a prince or a noble. A common soldier." Yuna felt sick. The wedding happened 3 weeks later. Yuna stood in the great hall of the palace, wearing the traditional white gown of a Valari bride. Her silver hair was decorated with crystals. Her violet eyes were cold and empty. She watched the doors open. She expected a monster. She had seen videos of human soldiers in battle. They moved like predators, fast and deadly. They showed no mercy. They kept fighting even when they were wounded, even when they should be dead. But the man who walked through the doors was not what she expected. Taiho was tall for a human, but not as tall as a Valari. His hair was black and cut short. His eyes were dark brown, almost black. He wore a simple gray suit, not armor. He walked calmly, not like a predator, but like a man taking a peaceful walk. He stopped in front of her and bowed his head slightly. "Princess Yuna," he said. His voice was soft. "Thank you for agreeing to this marriage. I know it is not easy for you. Yuna did not answer. She just stared at him, trying to find the monster hiding behind those calm eyes. The ceremony was short. They exchanged vows. They signed a treaty. And just like that, the war was over. The humans and the Valari were now allies, bound by marriage. That night, Yuna sat in her new quarters. These rooms were meant for her and her husband. But Taiho had not come. A servant told her that he had asked for a separate room in the east wing of the palace. He said he does not wish to make you uncomfortable, the servant explained. He said he will give you time. Yuna did not know what to think. Was this a trick? Some kind of human strategy? She had studied human warfare. They were famous for their patience, for their long plans, for striking when their enemies least expected it. She decided to watch him, to study him, to find his weakness. The next morning, Yuna followed Taiho from a distance. She expected him to explore the palace's defenses, to count the guards, to look for weak points. Instead, he went to the palace garden. She hid behind a pillar and watched Taiho knelt in the dirt. He touched the flowers gently, examining their leaves and petals. A gardener approached him, an old Valari servant who had worked in the palace for decades. Yuna expected Taiho to ignore him or order him away, but Taiho smiled. He actually smiled at the old servant. "These are beautiful," Taiho said, pointing at a group of blue flowers. "We have something similar on Earth. We call them forget-me-nots. What do you call these?" The old gardener seemed surprised. No one in the palace had ever asked him about his flowers. "We call them stardrops, my lord. They bloom only at night, when the 3 moons rise together." Taiho nodded with genuine interest. "I would love to see that. When is the next time the moons align?" Yuna watched them talk for almost an hour. Taiho asked about soil, about water, about sunlight. He laughed at the gardener's jokes. He helped him pull weeds from the ground. This made no sense. This was the species that had conquered 12 planets in 5 years. This was the warrior who had killed hundreds in battle. Over the next few days, Yuna continued to watch. She saw Taiho eat breakfast alone, reading something on a small device. She saw him walk through the market district, buying small gifts for the palace servants. She saw him stop to help a child who had fallen and scraped her knee. The child was Valari, with silver skin and pointed ears. Most aliens were afraid of humans. But when Taiho knelt down and offered his hand, the little girl took it without fear. "It is okay," he told her. "Falls happen. You are very brave." The girl's mother came running, her face full of terror when she saw a human touching her daughter. But Taiho just smiled, bowed politely, and walked away without saying another word. Yuna followed him back to the palace. She watched him enter his room in the east wing. She stood outside his door for a long time, trying to understand. That night, she joined him for dinner. It was their first meal together since the wedding. Taiho seemed surprised to see her, but he welcomed her warmly. "I hope the food is acceptable," he said. "I asked the kitchen to prepare Valari dishes. I did not want to make you eat human food." Yuna looked at the table. Every dish was from her culture. Every plate was arranged in the traditional way. He had learned their customs. He was trying to make her comfortable. "Why are you doing this?" she asked suddenly. Taiho looked confused. "Doing what?" "Being kind. Being gentle. You are a soldier. You killed thousands of my people in the war. Why are you acting like this?" Taiho was quiet for a moment. Then he put down his fork and looked directly at her. "The war is over," he said simply. "I did not enjoy killing your people, princess. I did it because I had to protect my own. But now we are not enemies. Now we are married. I want to be a good husband, if you will let me." Yuna did not know what to say. She had prepared herself for a monster. She had prepared herself for cruelty, for violence, for a life of fear, that she had not prepared herself for kindness. That night, as she lay in bed, Yuna made a decision. She would continue to watch this human. She would find his true nature. Because no creature that could wage war like humans did could truly be this gentle dot. There had to be something more. Something hidden. She just had to find it.